When asking someone what part they dislike most about school, it seems like one of the most popular answers to come up is homework. The idea of getting more work added on to do at home after spending their day already doing work can be quite annoying for students. And annoyance is the reason why some may respond that way. However, another more overlooked reason for this is because of stress. It's no secret that students nowadays are extremely stressed, and it's logical to believe that homework is a very large contributing factor to that. With multiple classes a day, it's very possible for a student to be loaded up with homework from each one. And it's not uncommon to hear about students having to stay up to late hours to complete assignments. At its core, homework is a stressful thing for many different kinds of students, and regardless of why they feel stressed about it, stress is still stress. So, today, I'm going to try and prove that stress in students is caused largely by the homework that they receive. To do this, I've devised a series of questions I'll use to interview students. It's only logical to go and see what they actually think about homework. So, the next step was to actually collect data from students. So, with a Google Sheet in hand, I went around asking all different kinds of students about their feelings and thoughts on homework. And here's one of the interviews I did with a student here at Monomoy. Alright, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Ocean Jones, and I'm an 11th grader.
Alright, so do you think that homework is helpful to you?
Not really. Man. I mean, it's mostly just like repeating stuff that you've already learned in class, and by then you usually already know it, I guess.
Alright, do you think that homework is stressful to you?
Yeah, I would say most of the time, seeing how it's usually stacked upon projects and stuff like that, and can kind of stress you out, I guess.
Alright, and lastly, do you think that homework is necessary to have?
Depends, but for the most part, I don't think so. Like I said, it's just mostly repeating stuff that we've already learned in class.
Alright, well, thank you. Completely unintentionally, Ocean's views fall in line with what most students seem to say at this point in data collection. The vast majority of them confirm that homework does stress them out, they don't feel it helps them, and they don't think it's necessary. There were a few outliers, but that's to be expected in any form of data collecting. But it became very obvious since the majority said that my initial assumption was proven to be quite correct. However, getting a different view on a subject is quite important, so I decided to interview a completely different kind of student from Ocean, just to see if a different kind of student would give a different answer. So here's that interview. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Alrighty, my name is Dylan Hall, I'm from grade 11.
Alright, so Dylan, do you think that homework is helpful to you?
Me personally, no, not really.
Alright, so next question. Do you think that homework is stressful to you?
Yeah, it's very stressful, speaking that I have to do driving hours, I have to think of college and all this other stuff. So, kind of just puts more work on my day.
Alright, and final question, do you think that homework is necessary for students to have?
In some cases, yes, in other cases, no. Like if you're working from a textbook or something, then I would say yes, but if any other words, if let's say it's algebra 2 or something, and they just hand you homework and whatever, you don't really know how to do it, then no, it just puts up way more stress.
Alright. Now that all the data have been collected, it was time to sit down and actually look at the numbers. The student data, as previously mentioned, looked largely similar. It didn't change much between the first and second interviews. Most students seemed to say the pretty same things. Most students seemed to say one of two things, however, including the outliers. The vast majority of students said they didn't think it was helpful and didn't think it was necessary and found it to be stressful. While there was a small minority of people who said that they found it to be helpful and to be necessary, however, they still found it to be stressful. However, almost every student I asked agreed that homework was stressful, regardless of their feelings on the other two questions, with only a very, very tiny minority of people saying they found it not to be of any stress. In the grand scheme of things, this is a very narrow study. This could very well only be the case for just Monomoy. But even if it is Monomoy only, I think it's very important that this information is acknowledged within the school, because there is clearly a high level of stress among the students here. But now that the students' data has been looked over, it was time to move on to the teachers and can then compare it to the students. I wasn't able to get as much data from the teachers as I was from students. However, something became very apparent while I was asking the teachers. Their explanations proved to be a lot more useful than the actual results I got. Having their views on each question versus the answer was very interesting. All the teachers who I asked said they believed homework was helpful to students. Interestingly enough, they all agreed that it was stressful. One teacher in particular acknowledged how students can be easily loaded up with homework from each one of their classes. But the most surprising result I got was when one of the teachers told me they didn't believe homework was necessary for students to have, despite agreeing that they found it to be helpful for them. It was interesting to see a teacher who believed the stress wasn't worth the helpful benefits of homework. However, all the other teachers disagreed with this by claiming it was necessary to have. One of the more surprising things I discovered was that there seemed to be no correlation between how much homework a teacher assigned and their views on the matter. I walked into this with a sneaking suspicion the amount of homework they gave would come into play somehow, but that didn't seem to be the case. But now that I had all the teachers' data, I had to compare it to the students. Looking at both sets of data, from both teachers and students, it's quite obvious they're different, except in one main regard, and of course, that happened to be stress. The vast majority of both teachers and students I asked believe that homework is stressful. Now, you might be wondering about the other two views I asked people on in regards to homework, and I'd argue their views there are actually irrelevant. I only asked them about the helpfulness and necessity of homework to get a broader view on their opinions and to get them to open their minds and really think about the questions I was asking them. The main focus of the study was whether or not students found homework to be stressful or not, so it makes sense to focus on that specifically. So despite how different the two views were when comparing both teachers and students on the other two questions, it's a fact that their views on stress were largely the same. As said previously, this is an extremely narrow study. If given more time, the results could be more accurate, but even with such a small pool, the results when it came to stress hardly varied. Is this the case for all schools? Who knows? My study may not be able to make a highly accurate claim. However, it does seriously present the question about stress and homework. If such a small-scale study yielded these results that seemed so similar to each other, what might a larger one reveal? But I do think it's very obvious, even from my small study, that these students are stressed due to homework that they receive, and even some of the teachers are willing to acknowledge it. Narrowness aside, the vast majority of people interviewed gave a response in support of that claim, so it's safe to say it has some merit to it. Even if I can't prove anything with 100% certainty, it still gets you thinking about the stress in students. I'm Nick Burns, and this has been my brief study on stress in students caused by homework.